I want to see what Georgia can do against a real opponent, and South Carolina will provide that. They might not provide much more. Paul Finebaum, Tuesday on the SEC Network, ditto completely. Everything that he said. South Carolina comes into this game as a 4-touchdown underdog, 27.5 points. I did not think Shane Beamer would be at the point where he'd be a four touchdown underdog, even on the road against Georgia, the number one team in the country, based on all of the discussion of this past year. I mean, when you have a great come from behind win over Clemson at their place, Memorial Stadium, when you have a win over Tennessee, which was we were driving back from Mississippi State when that was happening. It was hard to believe what we were watching, y'all. But they've not looked great since then. And what Paul was saying is one aspect of this game. The other aspect is Georgia really playing an SEC foe. It's the first time that Georgia gets to play somebody with legitimate talent on the other side. No, all due respect to the last two teams that Georgia's played. So when you're playing in the league, the guys look different. There's a different speed. There's a different urgency about the game. But South Carolina is going to have a really, really hard time playing with Georgia if the last 2 weeks are any indication of where South Carolina's at. Like if Georgia were playing Florida State this week, if they were playing Michigan, if they were playing Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, LSU, Penn State, I'll throw them in there because they act like they're a big time team. Then I think that would be a different discussion. It's not the same discussions we're having right now. Carolina has not at all looked like what they have led their fans to believe. I mean, listen, I know that fan base well. I know them very well. And there's plenty of summertime optimism in South Carolina. And it's not just the weather and the beaches. It's that they really believe it. Now, having gone to college and played college ball there, this is who they are. They've always been this way. I mean, it's cute. Sometimes they actually have good seasons. They've had in the last 30 years, they've had, 2 really good seasons. I'll give them 3. 10, 11, 12. Well, really 4. Okay, I'll give you 4. So about 10% of their seasons have been really good seasons. 10, 11, 12, and 13. They won the East once in that time. They were really a really good team in 13 for sure. But they never do close the door on having a good year. So this season so far, unless they shock the world legitimately on Saturday, it's not going to be any different. They're going to roll into late September with a losing season. They're going to losing record, I should say, and they're going to look at having to really claw their way through a legitimate schedule to get to a winning season. They lost to Florida last year. They lost to Missouri last year. This is what we do in college football. We talk about how Alabama could have been undefeated if it weren't for 2 plays last year, completely ignoring the flip side of that, which is they could have been 8-4 if 2 plays didn't go their way, which were the Texas play and Texas A&M play. Okay, see games. Those games were also decided on the last play of the game. Alabama has gone from playing, 2 games, maybe a game a year that come down the fourth quarter in the final play of the game, to playing 4 of them in 1 year in 2022. With South Carolina, we're going to really act like there weren't flashing problems. Now, with that said, we also know the good with the bad. South Carolina also steamrolled Tennessee last year, a team that Georgia steamrolled too, but South Carolina put up 60 points or whatever it was, and then they took care of business against Clemson, a team that not great last year, but was within a point of playing in the college football playoff, even with a 3-touchdown loss on the road to Notre Dame. So, that's what's, and no one's in South Carolina's head more than Clemson. I can completely assure you of that. So those were big, it was all of those things for South Carolina last year. For Georgia, the Missouri game and the Ohio State game, one of those was decided on the last play of the game. One of those was decided in the last 4 minutes of a game. The rest of Georgia game this season has not been dissimilar from last. You do not have the Oregon game yet, where they just blistered somebody at the start of the season. Well, they haven't played that game. Like, what I mean to say is that they've not had a legitimate opponent, which is what Paul's entire point is here. You have to have. I think this is a great moment in time to understand and know where Georgia's at. Because South Carolina's not good. I understand that. And all that said, they still have SEC players. They're still very good. I think that this is a great testing ground for Georgia. You know what else is great is taking advantage of these offers we've got. DoorDash, 50% off of your next order of $15 or more when you sign up for the DoorDash student plan and enter the code DOGPOSTBTC, back to college. 50% off your next order of $15 or more when you sign up for the DoorDash student pass. Enter the code DOGPOSTBTC. Don't forget the code DOGPOSTBTC. 50% off the Dash Pass student plan, subject to change, terms apply. I would rock that out, before the game. Certainly after. Are you really trying to? I mean, if you're grilling out like we do, kicking it in your eco-poly chairs and your tables and all that, that's one thing. But like, if you're not going to do that, definitely DoorDash. I mean, for the win. There's a lot of places in Athens that got DoorDash. If they want to pay us to mention them, we will gladly make that happen. I think for Georgia, what they want to see happen is the offense get off to a start just like last week, except you score. You close the deal on that on the first drive. You get your 3 points or 7 points. South Carolina is going to have a hard time against Georgia functioning on offense. As good as Spencer Rattler's statistics have been, dealing with what he's about to deal with is a totally different ball game. And, in terms of the amount of sacks that South Carolina has permitted, that's a problem. And that's not just on Spencer Rattler. 10 sacks in 2 games, way too many. Way too many. Georgia has allowed 1 sack this year. 1. I don't even know. It had to have been, I guess it would have to be Carson. I don't know who. But the opposing sack, that's way too many. Way too many. Colorado's allowed 12. I don't know how that's possible. But they have. But South Carolina's a real problem. Alabama's got 7. Those lines are not getting the job done, A, but B, or you could say A, what I'm about to say, I think Spencer Rattler is kind of caressing the ball a little bit too much. That's my take on where, he's really at. And I think that's going to be problematic for him. He's the number 13 in the country passing efficiency guy. So he's certainly, getting it done on that front. But what we don't, what we don't know, what that doesn't capture is how are you really playing the position? How are you really playing the position? He's thrown a bunch of completions, 55 completions this season. There's not a lot of guys who have thrown more completions than him this season. Some of them are just straight up pass-based teams. Colorado, who I'm putting in that category, Hawaii, Washington State, Wazoo, UW. I would say Clemson at this point. Certainly USC is. Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler have completed the same amount of passes. And Spencer's been more had more precision with his catches, but his yield is almost 170 or 180 yards fewer than Caleb Williams. So that's why Williams is so high on this list. He's certainly the best quarterback in the country, but that's not the only way you got to play. You can play. You can run the ball. There's a lot of different things that you're allowed to do in sports. And Georgia's winning with different ways. That's the part that's so, I think, going to be challenging for South Carolina in this thing is what Georgia's doing, just generally speaking. Like, South Carolina, this is not a great matchup for South Carolina. 127th overall in run offense. Are they going to have 50 yards rushing against Georgia? They have 53 right now total. They couldn't run it against Furman. So Paul's general point, I agree with. I mean, again, the quote, because I want to see what Georgia can do against a real opponent, and South Carolina provide that. That might be that they might not provide much more, but everybody knew, when the SEC took the Oklahoma game away, and Georgia be favored in a significant way over Oklahoma on the road too this week, but they're not playing them. When the league took that game away for good reason this season, this is the schedule Georgia's got. They can't, there's nothing they can do about it. A lot of these games are set in stone years in advance, and when you take one of those games away, it was supposed to be Virginia, Clemson, Oregon, Oklahoma, Clemson, and then I can't remember who it is in 25. Well, Virginia went away, COVID. This game goes away, SEC expansion. So these things happen. This will be Georgia's first real test of the season. It might not be a hard test, but it will be their first real test of the season.